Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this week we have a lot to talk about with iOS 27 again, along with iPhone Fold, iOS 26.2 RC and when to expect that, and much more. This is your weekly Apple News update for the week of December 1st, 2025. Now, someone was able to get iPadOS to run on iPhone 17 Pro Max. They actually showed a video of this on X, so if we take a look here, you can see first look of iPadOS on iPhone 17 Pro Max. And if you go through the video, you can actually see that it's running multitasking and working like you would expect. This is something that could be in preparation, of course, for what we can expect with the iPhone Fold. Maybe that's what it will look like, but someone was able to get it running on the iPhone, as basically iOS and iPadOS are very, very similar, but we're just not allowed to have those features on cross devices. So maybe we'll have that in the future. Tim Cook has pledged support after the sad and devastating fires in Hong Kong. Tim Cook actually posted on X where he says, "Heartbroken by the devastating fire in Hong Kong. Everyone affected is in our thoughts and we are thankful for the first responders. Apple is donating to relief efforts on the ground." So it's great to see Apple helping out those in need. When there's different disasters, they typically do that. Apple may be working with Intel in the near future to provide its Apple Silicon chips, according to Ming-Chi Kuo. Intel used to work with Apple and has been on the downturn for quite a few years now. However, now it seems to have the facilities needed to fabricate Apple's own chips that could bring production back to the United States for the base chips such as the M5, M6, M7, and so on. Apple will still utilize TSMC for the Pro models and Ultra models, it seems, but we could have many of the other chipsets made in America. The iPhone SE is now considered vintage, along with a few other products. Apple updated their obtaining service for your Apple product after an expired warranty list, and it actually says about vintage products. So if we go down to iPhone, for example, you'll see that we have all of the different iPhones that are no longer supported, and you can see those here. So if we scroll down, you'll see that they now list the iPhone SE. This is also including another device with the iPad Pro 12.9-inch second generation and the Apple Watch Series 4, both Hermes and Nike versions, as well as the Beats Pill 2.0. So I'll link this in the description below if you want to see all the obsolete products, but it looks like they're no longer supported, but that's quite an old device at this point. But either way, it was one of the best looking devices as it looked like the iPhone 5. Apple recently laid off some sales team employees. Apple rarely gets rid of people, but said to connect with even more customers, we're making some changes in our sales team that affect a small number of roles. Now, how getting rid of people connects with more people is uncertain, but sadly some have been let go before the holiday. So hopefully we don't see too much of this from Apple. This is pretty rare, and they don't typically just get rid of people like that. Apple News recently lost a news provider. If we go into Apple News and we do a search for CNN, you'll see they're no longer available as an option. So they're no longer posting their news on Apple News. However, I'm not sure many people use it either way for that, as I typically don't look at regular news here other than what's suggested. So let me know if you use Apple News regularly. I typically just use it for magazines, games, and things like that. According to Reuters this week, India is requiring smartphone manufacturers to install a state-owned security app called Sanchar Sathi to be pre-installed on all phones without the option to delete it. Apple has about 90 days or so to comply at the time of this video, and whether or not Apple will actually do it is hard to say. But I'm curious if you're in India, if you've heard of this, if this is something you would welcome, or if you're against it. But Apple doesn't typically allow apps to be installed and then not deleted. But let me know what you think of that in the comments below. In the United States, there's a new law being proposed for the App Store. This is called the App Store Accountability Act that could require app stores to verify a user's age and then send that information to the developer as a way to protect children from age-inappropriate content. Currently, this is the job of the app developers, but the new bill would shift responsibility to the store owner. The co-sponsor of the bill being put forth in Congress said that the idea is to hold tech companies responsible and to the same standard as the local corner stores that have to comply with laws as far as who can buy what product. So let me know what you think of that. I'm not sure that it will pass, but either way, it looks like it's in process, and that could be a new rule in the near future. Now, there's a couple things I wanted to mention, and the first one has to do with the apps. WhatsApp got a new update today, and you can see that here just a couple hours ago to version 25.35.72, where it says updated about to appear at the top of chat with new timer options. Go to settings, set your about to let people know what you're up to, whether you're busy, free to chat, or want to share a thought. It says WhatsApp is now available on Apple Watch, and those were some recent updates as well. So make sure you update that, and of course that new feature is available now. Now, many people ask me almost every video what weather app I'm using. This is Mercury Weather. I've been using it for some time. I actually purchased the subscription for it so that I could customize the widget on the home screen. So you can change the overall color, edit the widget, change it maybe to rainy blue, switch back, and you can change the color, or you can have it dynamic and other things as well. So you can fully customize this however you'd like. Hopefully they'll add some more color options in the future, but there's actually a deal going on for it today if you sign up for the subscription for 15% off for a year. So it's fairly inexpensive, and I'll link it in the description if you want. They've given me an exclusive discount for you, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. As far as Cyber Monday deals, I did want to go over a couple things, as there's a great deal on MacBook Air M1. In fact, on Walmart.com, if you don't have a MacBook Air with an M1 or later chipset, it's $499, down $150 today on Walmart. So again, I'll link that in the description if you want to check it out. This is new, it's not restored. So if you've been wanting an inexpensive MacBook, the base model is good enough for you, that's a pretty good deal. However, I would go maybe for some others that are available as well, such as the MacBook Air M4 that starts at under $749 now. That's an even better deal with a newer chipset in it. There's also deals on AirPods Pro 3. They're down to $219.99, and there were some great deals on AirPods 4, but they may be sold out, but I'll link those in the description where they were half off. Apple Watch Series 11 has a big discount, along with iPads and much more. All of those will be linked in the description below. Now, when it comes to releases this week, we're all looking forward to iOS 26.2, probably RC this coming week. Based on what we've seen in the past, typically we've seen it on Wednesday after Thanksgiving. So last year it released on Wednesday, December 5th, with an RC2 releasing on December 9th. The public release last year of iOS 18.2 was on December 11th. So based off of this information, we could have an RC any day now. It could be up until Wednesday. Then we could have maybe an RC2 if there's additional issues, but we could expect a release to the public as soon as December 8th or possibly the 15th. Either way, it needs to release before the 19th to comply with rules in Japan, allowing you to set the side button to change your overall assistant from Siri to Gemini or others. So it needs to comply with that rule before that time frame. Now, once we get iOS 26.2, we could get iOS 26.3 Beta 1. Last year, iOS 18.3 Beta 1 released on December 16th, and that was the last beta for the rest of the year. Then we had iOS 18.2.1 on January 6th, and then on January 7th, we got iOS 18.3 Beta 2. So we could see a similar timeline with iOS 26.2.1 if there's issues, or 26.3 Beta 2 on the 6th or 7th. So that's what I would expect this year. Again, they typically run around the same time frame. Then when we get to about March, we could see iOS 18.4 finally released to the public, and that's when we expect the new Siri update. This is expected before iOS 27, where we'll have a major update with Siri, possibly using some sort of custom Gemini model that Google worked with Apple to build and is running on Apple's private cloud compute. So that's what we expect as far as this coming year. Of course, then we move on to iOS 27. Apple is expected to show that off in June, typically the first or second week, probably June 8th this year based on what we've seen in the past. But once we get iOS 27, well, iOS 26 has been pretty buggy, and it seems like iOS 27 could finally fix the years of bugs as it focuses to bring a Snow Leopard-like release. I talked about this a little bit before. Some people are a little bit skeptical, but we heard from Mark Gurman that this is Apple's plan for this year, along with adding a few significant AI features. Now, we've heard many of this before. However, Mark Gurman has never said it would be a Snow Leopard-like release, that they would just work on performance. But based on what we've had this year, we've had over 300 features and changes with iOS 26. If they drop that down to 50 with iOS 27, or even just 5 significant changes, maybe with some AI updates, some new features, and then refinements, I think many people would welcome that. So to have maybe a TikTok year like we've seen before, where we have one year that's new features, the next year is just stability and back and forth, would definitely be welcome, since we have tons of features now. And once they bring maybe a number row to the keyboard, or maybe split view, I think that would add most features that people are wanting from iPhone. So then they could just refine it, and now it's reached maturity. Of course, iOS 27 is also expected to bring a new interface change for the iPhone Fold, maybe having multitasking and more, where we would have something that's as thin as the iPhone Air, maybe 2 of them together, adding up to just about what we have with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So those are the things I would expect so far, and that seems typical for what we expect, at least in 2026. Now, as far as the iPhone Fold, it supposedly had a breakthrough in eliminating the crease on the folding display. While the display is expected to be made by Samsung, the components for the phone itself are not, and Apple has supposedly figured out how to get rid of the crease entirely according to UDN. So getting rid of that crease, we've seen this on a few Chinese phones where they do get rid of it, but it's still not perfect. And Samsung phones are super thin and look great this year, but still have a little bit of a crease. If Apple can completely eliminate it, I think that would be a big breakthrough. So hopefully we see that with the Fold. 9to5Mac also thinks the iPhone Fold could be called the iPhone Ultra, finally tying the Ultra name to an iPhone and not just an Apple Watch. So that would be the time frame probably to bring that name, but we'll have to wait and see if it's called iPhone Fold or if it's called iPhone Ultra or maybe something entirely new. Now, Macs in 2026 should see a similar upgrade as we see year over year, with new upgrades this year with M5s. So far, we've had the M5 MacBook Pro, but no M5 Pro or M5 Max chipset. Again, we don't have the M5 Ultra. So in early 2026, we expect an M5 MacBook Air and a 12.9-inch entry-level MacBook using the A18 chipset, supposedly, that's going to be less expensive. Then in mid-2026, we could see an updated Mac Studio with an M5 Ultra, and Apple is supposedly abandoning the Mac Pro or not going to update it for quite some time. I would love to see a significant upgrade. Maybe it's time to change the design altogether, but either way, I would like to see an upgrade there, along with a redesigned Mac Studio, as that's one of my least favorite designs, but it's very functional. Then later in 2026, we could see the MacBook Pro M5 Pro and M5 Max, and we could also get upgraded iMacs as well. And based on recent iPad updates, such as the M5, it can now output via its Thunderbolt port to displays allowing for 120 Hz at 4K and even 6K. But so far, Apple doesn't make the display with this capability. So maybe we'll see an upgraded Studio display, maybe a Pro Display XDR with ProMotion or something similar. I would love to see that, as we have ProMotion on the iPad, we have it on the MacBook Pro, but we don't have it for the larger Mac. So I would love to see that this year. And then later in 2026 or 2027, we also expect a newly redesigned MacBook Pro with a touchscreen. It's expected to have that touchscreen along with an OLED or maybe tandem OLED like this M5 iPad Pro, and this is according to Ming-Chi Kuo and also corroborated with Mark Gurman. So we expect all of those updates this year, and hopefully we'll get some other things we don't expect. We're also expecting some updates to Home, as Apple basically let the HomePod Mini go away. So the HomePod Mini basically ran out of stock before the holiday season, and maybe that's because they have new devices. They're just not ready until the new Siri is ready. So hopefully we'll see some sort of home device. It's long been rumored we'd have a HomePod with maybe a 6-inch display on it that would maybe control our home or something along those lines. So we're waiting for that and any other things they have for home devices. So we would love to see that, but again, there's been no recent news about it. Now, Apple is still said to be working on smart glasses. Recently, they stopped work on Apple Vision Air or Apple Vision Pro 2 to sort of focus on smart glasses. It doesn't mean we won't see a Vision Pro 2, but it seems like they're focused all in on smart glasses that would have an AI assistant, but of course would need an upgraded Siri for that to function. So we could see that in 2026, and let me know if you would purchase those instead of maybe Meta glasses with AI built in, or if that's something you're not interested in. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. So that's everything this week so far with the latest Apple news. I'm expecting a lot more later in the week with iOS 26.2 RC or maybe Beta 4, but I think it will be the RC, and hopefully some other updates with maybe iOS 27 and more before the end of the year. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below, and of course if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.